Well, I don't know if I've ever received as many requests from you all out there after one particular piece of news to bring on Brian Smith, but after the Elijah Rushing announcement that he's opened up his recruitment, I had messages pouring in on YouTube and Twitter, and I mean everywhere it was, "Hey, ask Brian about this. Hey, what does Brian think about this?" Well, guess what? Look, there he is. Here's Brian Smith, our Locked On Recruiting Insider here at the network. Let's start with just your reaction, Brian, to Elijah Rushing reopening his commitment, decommitting from Arizona. What did you think?
Stunned. I hadn't heard anything, and it's not like I follow Arizona high school football that close, but he is a dude. I didn't know anything about it, and there it is. I pull up, his dad's commenting on it, etc. They're looking at a different direction. They want to go somewhere that's better program right now. I'll give credit to Arizona. They've improved, but I understand his point. And of course, that squarely puts the Ducks back in the conversation. That's a top 15 team by anybody's opinion, and I think top 10. So there you go. As for the Ducks, before you even ask, kind of hard not to favor them, wouldn't it be? Because that's the program. I thought that's where he was going last time. But at the same time, he surprised us all with Arizona. So I'm going to hold off on any predictions before you ask me.
Yeah, that's
that was the one I was like, okay, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, that's completely fair, and it does feel like this is very up in the air. And Oregon is, as you said, squarely in the mix. They're far from the only school that's involved with his newly open recruitment, but Oregon is certainly going to have a chance. And you'd come on here and talked about his original commitment, that it came down to Oregon and Tennessee. Tennessee is reportedly still going to be in the mix. Oregon still going to be in the mix. Who else is going to be after Elijah Rushing?
It's easier to go down the list of who is not.
Okay.
Because he's the pass rush. Like, seriously,
well, I mean, there are over 120 FBS schools, Brian. So are you telling me 123? So are you telling me that there are? You're telling me there are over 125 schools that we should talk about here? Like, if you had to narrow the list down to a top 5 to 10, maybe, is that how many we're talking about here? Like, how many schools are going after him?
I would say realistically 5 to 15. It just depends on what the parents and stuff want from phone calls. But whatever the list is, it has to, whether they want it to or not, to be dwindled to 3 to 5 almost immediately because of time frame. We're just over 2 months to signing day. And I can tell you that in-season game day official visits are stressful. High school coaches hate them because it takes their play away from their program and all that. So maybe 1 or 2 visits and maybe an unofficial visit or something. But Oregon, I would assume Tennessee, maybe Arizona State, although they're not very good, so they don't fit the profile his dad was talking about in the interview, and anybody out there, you can look it up. I would imagine this is going to be a pretty quick one. My question is always the same, and I say it on this show and many others all the time. Don't go by what they say, go by what they do. Where does Rushing visit next, or visits, as it may be? That's the thing to track. Arizona State are down the road. Does he take any more visits outside the confines of the state of Arizona? That is really because if it's Tennessee or Oregon, I mean, he's been, but the more recent vibe, does he want to check it? I don't know. Those are the things I would look at. And I don't know the kid personally, but since again, he picked Arizona and nobody really picked him to go there, he's a little different. It's going to be a little harder to follow. So the only thing I can say is just go by what he does, and we'll figure it out from there.
So when is he expected to take these visits? Is there a timeline on when he's going to commit, or is this all fluid up in the air and we just kind of have to monitor it day by day, week by week?
You answered it.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's okay now. Keep in mind, this just happened. That same questioning in, say, 72 hours, it could bring up many different answers. They may not have a definitive plan yet, and it's just in progress. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm sure the parents, the high school coaches that I guarantee you, among others, want this to be over sooner than later, because it's not fun to have all these coaches. They're literally, I know how this works. They're literally going to get bombarded. There'll be schools that weren't in his final 10 that are going to hammer them. I'll give you an example. There's a kid I went to see recently, and I was in their locker room at a practice here in Florida where I live, and he reached into his locker. He had a stack from LSU, just like sometimes these schools, and I'm like, oh my God.
Wait. Just to be clear, a stack of what?
Not money.
But hey, it's recruiting, Brian. It's the NIL world. I don't know.
Just like every single coach had sent him a package, like personal. And now because we're down to the nitty gritty and there's hardly any pass rushers left, and that's a premium position, and he's a 5-star. Do you want to be his postman? I wouldn't, because it's not going to be friendly.
Is he getting like pamphlets like for a retirement home? Like, come to LSU. like what is in what's in the paper that they're sending? Brian is just shaking his head over here.
Every school does it, and they'll put in written letters, different things, pictures of the stadium, academics. It's everything that you can imagine. But when a kid reopens his recruitment like this, it just restarts. It's like the calendar started over, but in a shortened it can be gruesome because the mailman's going to be cussing him. You know, he's like, come on, I got a whole bundle just for this house.
I can't even fit it in your mailbox.
No, like literally, it'll be a drop off at the door.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so just to recap on rushing. Recruitment's back open, timeline uncertain, got to follow where he's going to be taking a visit. Oregon is in the mix. Lots of other big-time schools are in the mix, and there will be more that reach out to him to say, hey, if you're not going to Arizona, you didn't consider us heavily before, but you should definitely consider us. Is there anything else that Oregon fans need to be up to date on Elijah Rushing?
You hit it.
All right.
I mean, it should be fun though, because this is one of the few guys still left on the board that's that high.
Right.
It'll be easy to focus.
Yeah, this is a top.
This
is a top 30 player in the country, right?
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of top 30 players, another one that's still on the board is Aydin Breland, 5-star defensive lineman from Mater Dei High School. Oregon missed out on his teammate Brandon Baker, who chose the Texas Longhorns. He is making his commitment verbally, because as we know, verbal commitments it's like being a leader in a race. Like, you haven't crossed the finish line just yet, lest we forget the Peyton Bowen situation. He commits on Saturday. Oregon and Georgia have, along with Miami, I think have been kind of the final three here. At least that's what he's put out publicly. I've heard Oregon and Georgia are kind of the top two there. What should Oregon fans expect to hear from Aydin Breland on Saturday?
Same thing. It's not what you say, it's what you do. His most recent visit was to Athens. I'm taking the Bulldogs. Prove me wrong. That's simple.
Still hope for Oregon, though? Like, it's not an all hope is lost situation? Okay.
There's a couple of kids this year that I was adamant were going to school X, and then I got phone calls like 24 hours before, like, this has changed. That's recruiting. And these kids picked other schools. Right. One would be Elijah Rushing, for example.
Right, exactly. It looked like Elijah Rushing was going to Oregon. That was 100%. What everything was trending. And then 24 to 36 hours, I had a couple people send me a message, say, hey, I think he's going to Arizona. And I was like, what? What are you? Really?
Yeah, that one, it was an all-timer. I'm like, are you serious? But Georgia's not as shocking. It's freaking Georgia.
Yeah.
And his last visit was to Georgia. So is anybody shocked by that? You shouldn't be.
Okay. Got it. Well, we'll watch out for that, as Oregon still is looking for their first 5-star in the 2024 cycle. They're sitting number 13 nationally in the 24/7 composite rankings. We did get a chance to see Dan Lanning tweet out his iconic duck emoji, where every time Oregon gets a commitment, he just tweets a duck. Nothing else. It's just the regular duck emoji, and Oregon fans go nuts every time that happens. Of course, junior college prospect for 2024, Sione Laulea. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I practiced before I came on the show to the best of my ability. If I'm not, by all means, someone can let me know. This is the number one junior college cornerback, as in defensive back, coming to the Ducks in the 2024 cycle. What do you see from this guy, Brian?
I watched his film, and I was a little leery, because usually once kids get above 6'1", you're like, yeah, he's not going to play corner. That kid's fluid, brother. There's a reason that he's got like Miami and Oregon and all these schools that came after him. Can't teach the length. He's at least 6'3". I mean, he could play free safety, but he's a dude. If Oregon, let's hypothetically say they land him, that's a guy that can plug and play. He can come in and like that. It'll be the first year for them in the Big Ten, by the way, against some of those big receivers, Penn State, Ohio State, etc. If you're going to compete with them, you need bigger corners. That's a big plus for Lanning. Obviously, he's a defensive guy anyway, but that's what they need. And I tell you what, that kid he's not getting a lot of recognition because he's a junior college player, he's going to play early somewhere.
So 6'3", I hear that and I think of Oregon's current number one corner, who will be big this weekend against Washington, Kyrie Jackson, who also once upon a time was playing junior college football before he transferred to Alabama and then came to the Ducks this offseason and has been really, really good this year so far and is one of the most important players this Saturday against the Huskies. Are there any similarities outside of being 6'3" between Laulea and Kyrie Jackson?
Just their athleticism. The ability to turn and run at their size is just rare as all get out. Usually kids like that, they can't hang with guys doing double moves, etc. These two are just more fluid. Jackson's going to get paid. And so is the kid Sion. He's going to get paid too. Just a matter of when do they turn pro? So yeah, if you have guys like that, you change your defense, man. Changes how your play call. It changes what you do in the back end, blitzing. There's a reason corners are so coveted. And this is a great example.
Fantastic stuff today. More to come on the show. Brian Smith is at FBScout_Florida on Twitter, our Locked On Recruiting Insider. Brian, very much appreciated. Thanks so much.
Absolutely, bud. Thank you very much.